apology for lateness from James. Of course, Phil's an apology, and 3 members plus Dawn will be leaving at 10 o'clock for what, an hour or whatever. Yep. So apart from that, we're all here, and we've got Tim on Zoom. Anyone else on Zoom? Andre.
Am I one of those members?
Yes. Tyrone, Tyler, Kelly, and Dawn.
Okay. And I'm going to leave at lunchtime to try and get a flight back to Christchurch, hopefully by tonight.
Safe journey.
I think the wind's going to come up again then, Tim. No,
it's actually just come. Yeah.
You'll be fine. All right, Stefan, sorry to keep you waiting. Go.
Who's driving?
I am. Okay, I thought we were going to run through this conversation. So thank you. I'm Stephen Thomas. I'm the acting head of building consenting. You probably know Robert Wright, who was the previous one. He resigned and left about a month ago. So I'm just acting while they look for a replacement. So we're going to run through the building regulation activity plan today. So just a quick summary of what this activity delivers. The full range of the full range is in there in the plan, but the activity delivers full range of regulatory requirements under the Building Act, acting both as both the building consenting authority and a territorial authority. Some of the summary of the tasks that included in the activity plan is issuing of building consents, carrying out building inspections, issuing of code compliance certificates, building warrant fitnesses, exemptions, certificates of acceptance, certificates of public use, inspection of residential swimming pools, maintain the register of earthquake-prone buildings, licensing and inspection of amusement devices, emergency building assessments, and building claims management. I've included in the activity plan is a number of interesting statistics and just sort of some year-on-year progress as well against those. I won't run through all of those.
That word interesting and statistics don't normally go together.
Oh, statistics are very interesting.
Yeah.
Just trying to lighten the mood.
I think so. Oh,
yeah.
more.
Yeah, there's a few pages.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess why are these activities delivered? Under the Building Act 2004, territorial authorities are required to perform the functions of a building consent authority. And that means that the building consent authority is responsible for checking in accordance with the requirements of the Act each type of building consent to ensure that the building consent complies with the building code and that the building work is being carried out in accordance with that building consent. And the activity aligns with Council's community outcomes by ensuring that new and altered buildings meet the requirements of the building code, are resilient and have attributes that contribute appropriately to the well-being, health, and physical independence of the people who use them. And this aligns with the collaborative, confident city. Providing a free eco-design advice service to promote the development of healthier buildings, improve energy, water, and material use, minimise waste, and reduce the environmental impacts of buildings, and it's aligning to a green, livable city. Effective building regulation services ensures developers feel part of a modern, robust, livable city, which promotes strong communities and prosperous economy, allowing citizens and developers to have faith to invest in Christchurch, aligning to a thriving, prosperous city. Also, this section 2.2 outlines how the activity supports progress on strategic priorities as well. So around climate resilience goals, I guess one of the big factors for us is around we have a number of inspection vehicles that are always out and about. So we're going through a phased approach of replacing those with electric vehicles when they come to end of life. And we're also using remote inspection technology as well. and we're sort of working with MB at the moment on how that could be further developed as well.
Innovation.
That's really
Um,
good.
We also are feeding into the MB climate change amendments as well. So there's some amendments that are basically around coming to make it mandatory for new and existing public industrial and large scale buildings to hold energy performance ratings, and requiring those to having building or demolition work to have a waste minimisation project plan. So the high impact issues for us for building consenting or building regulation is climate change and adaptation, and regulation and reform. So obviously there's a bit of reform in central government reform, but it has the potential to impact on the way we operate in the short and long term. And it may determine a new operating model and standards that services are required to implement or be impacted by. So we're working closely with central government where we can to understand and input into the reforms, and also so that we're aware of what they are and when they're happening, so we can upskill staff and put those into our processes.
Mhm.
So just around levels of service, some proposed changes, but generally we're retaining the existing levels of service because they are regulated KPIs or levels of service. And the only changes that have been proposed are reallocation of tasks across activities. So level service 9.1.15.2 is provide case management. That's been proposed to move into the city growth and property activity because that's where the task sits. Similarly, the levels of service around processing project information, memoranda, applications, and also the level of service around swimming pool, residential swimming pools, and it's around preventing drowning of and injury to young children. They're both moving into building regulation because we look after those tasks. In terms of OPEX and CAPEX, this level of service doesn't have, or the activity doesn't have CAPEX, and then the OPEX is just generally proposed to remain the same, but inflation adjusted. And then just a quick coverage of some of the challenges outlined in the plan for us. I guess main ones around peak workload generated by population growth and movement, technology changes, which is probably more an opportunity rather than a challenge, but there's a lot of change, as with a lot of activities, and ongoing reform around Three Waters reform, RMA, and future of local government. And I guess risks outlined in the plan include loss of accreditation, litigation, reputation, I guess trying to find technical staff resources where we need to, and also national government, central government recommendations, but also, I guess, with elections coming up, what the opposition parties are proposing, which some changes to the way building consent could be done if they're successful. So that's really all I was going to cover off.
Any questions? No. Oh, Yanni.
Yeah, thanks. Just looking at the the levels of service. Obviously, the building consent, the 61 and 19 working days is just pretty bleak. So the agenda, I really like the trend. So it's really good to be able to see where we're going. But I guess what I don't get a sense is how do we get back on top of that satisfaction? And the other thing that I was quite interested in, and I know there'd been some work done, was around the audits, the audit building warrant of fitness, and just, in 2019 we're doing 405, and 2023 we're doing 198. And I know we've had a bit of a discussion about what happened up in Wellington with the fire in that building. So I was just wondering if you could just talk through, what's we're going to be doing differently in this LTP to get on top of the building consent timeframes and satisfaction, and also to ensure that we're doing good audits of the buildings that are at risk. And I had one other question around the eco design, which was just around I think it's only for new builds, but have we thought about what would happen if we extended that to people that are doing redevelopment or repair, significant repairs?
Well, so that's 4 questions, is it? 3. Are you able to manage those? And if you can't answer the eco one, we can do it with a memo.
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the building warrant fitness.
Yep.
So we've made a number of changes to the, I guess, our internal procedures with that, and we've got a few new systems in place, which has increased the efficiency of our operations. And I guess the way to see the success of that is really talk about some of the stats. So if you look at the previous years leading up to the current one, we were doing about 190 or just under 200 audits a year. We currently have, in the 3 months this year, we've done that many already, and we're on track to do potentially over 750 this year based on the changes we've made. In addition to that, we've also got 3 additional staff coming on board as well. So once they're trained up, we're thinking we're going to get right up to pretty much close to, I guess, that a third of the buildings. So therefore, we do them every 3 years. We're also targeting the buildings a little bit differently. So all the buildings are sort of categorised into different risk factors. So there's high risk, medium risk, and low risk. We're looking to do the high risk buildings, audit them. So there's about 700 of them. So we try and do those every year.
Right, you're getting into really detail.
Yeah.
We don't need that detail. The 3 more staff, is this a self-funding operation? So 3 more staff will be funded?
It's included into the LTP in the annual plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so next question.
So your first question. Oh, yeah. So again, we've got a few processes in place that we're putting that's bringing down some of those response times. So we've got we're using staff, a bit of overtime for staff. We've changed some processes as well. So the response times are trending down at the moment. So we're going to continue with that too through the next LTP to ensure those times are met.
Okay, thank you. And we've got Tim has a
the eco design.
Given
that we've declined, but I mean, again, happy to get the answer later. But just what we would need if we wanted to extend it, what that would look like.
So I suggest that Stefan takes it offline and gives a written response back.
Okay. Yep.
It'll come back to all of us.
It will come back to all of you. Yes.
So Tim and then Tyrone. Tim.
Thank you. Just with regards to looking at building sites or development sites and sediment runoff, I just wonder, because it seems it's still being run by ECAM, but I thought we were picking that one up, and I was just wondering where that sits.
Is that the compliance, Tim?
Yeah, it's
But yeah, we do the inspection, don't we, for ECAM or something like that?
Yeah. Sure.
So we found efficiency there by having just one inspector. When we go out to inspect the site, we include the sedimentation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good thing. Tyrone?
Thank you. So just on that, it's encouraging to hear that the response times are reducing. So what's the natural, well, not natural, but what does the backlog for building consents look like? And what would it take to get the backlog down to practically zero?
So, I mean, I guess the backlog was generated by, the most current one was by the changes to the H1 regulation back in March or April, which resulted in a number of, a much larger number of applications coming in on over a weekend. So what are we looking at currently? Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I mean, just in terms of days of throughput, what would the backlog normally look like? Like what would be the lead time between receipt of an application to when it actually kicked off as to be processed?
Yeah.
Would you like to come down?
Yeah. So residential back under 20 working days.
That's the statutory.
It's the requirement. What are we?
But what?
Yeah, we're picking it up just below 20. We're picking up just below 20 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you're always working on continual improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of those questions. So next. Right.
Harassing.
Who have we got? Tracy. Thanks, Stefan. Well
you.
done. Marina, Tracy.
Morning. Morning, everyone. I'm going to be presenting 2 activity plans today, so you're going to get used to seeing my smiley face. And we'll start with the regulatory compliance and licensing activity plan, if that's okay. So this activity plan is quite diverse. A lot of my business is linked through the legislation, but not linked together. So it's quite an interesting area to be in, because every day it changes. This activity plan covers off animal management services, compliance investigations, alcohol licensing, environmental health, food safety, and regulatory compliance public advice. So I've given a bit of a snapshot of the provision of service that we provided the community last year. So we had 2,388 barking dogs, 580 biting dogs complaints, 572 rushing. So as you can see, I mean, I'm not going to read every table for you, because I'm sure you've had a look earlier, but they're generally consistent year on year. We did an analysis of last year and this year, and there's no major spikes or anything. It's just sort of just been consistent. We now have 40,000 registered dogs in Christchurch. Now that is an increase, and we've seen more and more dog owners. Pretty much most households have a dog, if not multiple dogs. So
Went past one the other day, they had 17 chihuahuas.
wow, I was going to say they'd have to be small.
Dawn just asked us that make a whole dog. I love it. Sorry, carry on.
And then the next slide is talking about
No.
other activities and the volume of those activities that we deliver. The why? Oh, so I've stolen Stefan's interesting statistics. And I just wanted to, sorry, I'll go back to the other one. Just wanted to show you some trends for the last 3 years. So barking dogs has increased. And when speaking to my team, I said, well, why do you think that is? And it was a lot of the end of COVID, and the dogs got used to their owners being at home. And then when they went back to work, they got sad. So that's why they were making a lot of noise, and that's what we think the trend is, but it's quite clear it is linked to when the lockdowns ceased. Also, dog bitings, we can't 100% say why that is, but we've got 5% more dogs in the city now. So it's just a population of dogs, I think, and there's community awareness of it all, and they're ready to communicate with us when they're seeing things that they're not happy with out in the community. So we can't govern how many complaints we receive, we just respond. The Building Act, unconsented work, so that has had a decline over the last 3 years. And dangerous buildings have remained fairly steady, with a small dip in 21-22, and unconsented RMA works has also had a slight decline as well. So that's good trends. But overall, the business remains fairly steady. So why we deliver our services? Well, this activity plays a key role in keeping the community safe and healthy by carrying out compliance checks to ensure that the legislation that we administer as a council is actually adhered to. We respond to potential breaches of incidents and with respect to dog control and all the other services that I mentioned earlier. And we believe, well, I believe this activity strongly aligns with the council's strategic priority of building trust and confidence in our community through meaningful partnerships with the residents and other key stakeholders. So moving on, I just wanted to touch on our compliance strategy. So you would have seen in the documentation that was shared with you, the council's compliance strategy was also within that bundle. So that strategy is explaining that we operate the VADE model within our model of compliance, and that's the voluntary, assisted, directed and enforced model. So voluntary is where people are most likely to comply. They're breaching legislation, but they're not actually sure. They're not aware that they're breaching it. Assisted is when people don't necessarily know they're breaking the rules and they want to comply. And directed and enforced is when we start to use our enforcement tools that are available to us. And I just wanted to share with you that our enforcement tools are based on the legislation that is provided to us. So it comes at a high level. We can do warnings, infringements, notice to fix, notices direction for food safety, abatement notices, and at the top end of enforcement is prosecution. But for our bylaws, we don't have the ability to infringe. We basically engage with them to comply by removing the matter that is causing the breach, or we have to go to court. So our bylaws enforcement tool is something that I don't know everyone was aware of, that we don't actually have a lot of levers to pull there. Then we've got, where are we? Climate. So climate resilience in relation to this goal, we are looking at doing an assessment of where our dog shelter is placed, just with flood level rise. So it would only come through a project and come as a form of a recommendation at this point to see what options we have available. And we're also looking at whether we can transition some of our fleet over to electric as well, because we have 11 dog control vehicles. I haven't got a big fleet, but we'll do our best. So the risks, we haven't got really any high impact risks. We just move with the ebb and flow of workload and prioritise on risk, and our levels of service, not looking to do a lot of change, because my levels of service are very legislated. Probably the changes that we're looking at this point is just moving some activities over into the building control space, because I've had a recent organisational structure shift, and some of those activities have gone over to building and planning area. And yeah, what else? We have assets. I have a very, very small capex, and that's related to the shelter maintenance and collaboration of compliance equipment. And financial, we're still working with our team on those. And that's pretty much all I was wanting to cover off from that activity. So I open it up for some questions.
Righty-ho. Mark, Councillor Peters.
Thank you. I think I noticed you had noise control as one of your little areas to look after.
Yep.
Do we have much in the way of smart technologies helping us in that space?
No.
Is that something that might be useful to sort of develop?
We've been talking to our contractors in relation to that, but it's not a tool we can utilise when it comes to enforcement. It just takes some subjectivity away from it. Yeah.
Cool.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Are you able to please just say when the dog control bylaw is being reviewed?
2024? Oh, 2026, sorry.
So it's been pushed back 3 years?
No, it's reviewed every 10 years.
So a review was due to take place this year and next?
No, next year we commence the consultation. Is that correct? Yeah. We
take a
commence
while.
consultation next year.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we have 40,000 dog owners we need to consult with. So that's quite an extensive period of time that we have to speak to the community about what we're proposing and hear what their views are. And then
Okay, so consultation due to take place next year.
yes.
We've got a number of new wetland areas being treated basically as off-leash dog areas. which is causing some havoc in areas that you'd assume are kind of likely to be either no-go areas for dogs down the track anyway, or leash areas. Do you have any comment about sort of how that can be handled between now and then? Because obviously there's a lot of areas that have been built since the dog control bylaw was last reviewed.
Yeah, so when we are aware of a problem area, the team do a focus patrol in that area, and they will, when the resources are in the general vicinity, they will make a point of doing a patrol and educate anybody who is in the area at the time. But until the bylaw is reviewed and we look to move to some of those wetlands as being prohibited, we just do an educational approach.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Kewen?
So quick, so just not so much dogs, but cats. I noticed that a number of councils in New Zealand have compulsory microchipping and desexing cats over particular ages. I think 12 weeks is the youngest one. When do we consider that?
I believe that it has been looked at central government level at the moment.
Ah,
And do we know where that's at?
No.
Could we get an update? Because I think at some point we should consider that as a council, but you know, bird life and everything else.
yeah, let's get an update on that, particularly because we're doing all the urban tree planting and trying to attract the birds back into the
Which would be great for feeding those
metropolitan
cats,
area.
but-
Yeah.
And I suggest that you do that after you know what the outcome of the general election is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I'll talk to our policy team, and once we know the outcome of the election, we'll
Yeah.
let you know.
And yeah, certainly.
Yeah, that's a good question, Councillor Kewen. Councillor Johansson?
Thank you. I thought is National going to repeal the RMA reforms?
I don't know.
I guess I'm
There's
just
talk
concerned
about that.
What
about
was it,
us.
Yanni?
I thought National might repeal the RMA reforms, but I was just concerned about us doing stuff now ahead of the election because we don't know who's going to be in power, and some of the changes might happen. So, just to raise that as a flag, I also was interested in the
I think
dog.
our wheels don't turn that fast. I mean, there's an election in 2 weeks now, so I think.
No, we're doing things now for the changes to the RMA,
Well,
but if a new government comes in and reverses the changes, then we've wasted all that time and energy.
yeah, what sort of
We're not
things?
active in that space at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just the dog control stuff. So is there any sort of like projects around upgrading dog parks? I see in like page 64 you've got a number of kind of key projects, and I appreciate that won't be everything.
No.
But I was just wondering, do the dog parks come under this sort of schedule?
We work closely with the parks team on the dog parks.
Right.
So what if they're upgrading any agility equipment or signage or fencing, we generally support them by providing a proportion of funding. But how they have done and what schedule occurs on is down to the parks team.
So
Right.
maybe if you flick a
Okay.
question through about that,
Yeah, I'll
Yanni,
put a
and I
question
think you're
through.
always looking for, is there any program for additional, is there any
Yeah.
planning for additional dog
And then I was
parks?
quite interested. I went to the Avon Ihutai Estuary Trust sort of AGM, and they were reporting back on the results of the cleanup, and they'd been asked to measure dog doos.
Oh.
And so they had quite a high number that they were finding. And I'm also aware that we've taken a lot of rubbish bins away from around the rivers as well. So I just wondered, is there any work going on around the sort of strategic response to that issue?
To fouling in the
Yeah.
So what we do again is once we know about it, we'll do some patrols and some education.
Right.
In other parts of the city, we have actually done a mailbox drop in the past, just outlining people's responsibilities and making them more aware of taking what their doggies do away with them.
But putting in back like those green dog bins that we used to have, or that we do have in some areas, that would be through the parks, not
this
through the
activity.
Okay.
No.
And just a final question from me is in regards to the VADE model. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration in some communities over our approach, and I think the point that Councillor Peters raised is one of the problems is that by the time people report the activity, and then by the time someone can assess it, it's often the activity has stopped or it's intermittent. So I'm just wondering, like, if we can get a project to look at the better use or increased use of technology to monitor particularly high risk sites that are generating a lot of complaints, that people are just getting really exasperated of having to
We do
complain.
have stationary monitoring devices that we utilise in high risk areas or high volume complaint areas,
Right.
specifically relating to noise. So we do that now.
Can you measure vibration?
No, I don't think so. No.
So are there things that we could look at to do? Because that's probably one of the biggest complaints I'm getting at the moment.
Yeah.
Vibrations from what?
Do you want to guess? From industrial activity adjacent to residential.
Right.
So it's short, sharp, loud bangs that causes vibrations that are, yeah.
We'd have to look at what legislation we'll be utilising to enforce that.
But just in terms of technology, I guess, yeah, it'd be good just to think about what's possible, because I'm also mindful of things like dust and odor, which are probably more ECAN.
But as Tracy said, you have to look at the legislation to see if there's anything about that in the first place. So maybe if you have a quick look and let us know, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
So Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that it might be, there's probably some information around already on the CAT stuff, because I know there's a couple of elected members already been working with staff in the background on the potential for the CAT microchipping and stuff. So,
I'm aware that our policy team have been having some discussions. So
yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you. What have we got next?
Okay, so we'll move on. So the next activity plan is the Land and Property Information Services. So this activity delivers LIMS to potential property owners or investors in the community, and property file requests. That's the records the council holds in relation to specific sites. We produced near on 9,000 LIMS last year. 726 property files were digitised within 5 working days, and 5,942 electronic property files were provided in 2 working days. So I haven't got a trend graph in this plan at this point, but I can talk to you about the number impact that we've had over the last 3 years. So as you can imagine, in 2021, we had like near 13,000 LIMS requested, and then 2021-22 with COVID and house sales not going forward, we saw a bit of a drop there, which was 11,103, and then last year we saw a further subsequent drop down to 9,000. So I think what that's displaying is the volatility of the property market at the moment, inflation, interest rates. People are just sitting rather than buying.
Yeah.
And we saw a very similar trend with our property file requests as well. They two usually go hand in hand. So I just wanted to give you a bit of background there. This service activity supports the thriving and prosperous city, and it provides people with the ability to make informed decisions before they make any investments. And it supports the building trust and confidence in council as our strategic priority. Not a lot of goals associated with the climate resilience aspect here, other than we will support what the facilities teams are wanting to promote. There's no high impact issues. Our levels of service are statutory, so they'll just be looking to roll over. And we have no assets in this activity. We have no capital. And that's pretty much it.
Well done. Any questions? Councillor Coker and then Councillor Johansson.
I was just looking at the cost analysis, and it has some of it been funded by rates before, and now all of it's going to go to fees. That's what that's showing?
It's pretty much all fees anyway.
Because it says minus 60% on rates and 160% on.
I think the property file component might be supported slightly by rates, but I haven't got those figures in front of me. I could talk to my finance partners if you wish.
Yeah, it just looks a bit weird.
Do you want an answer to that? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Johansson.
I was just interested in the high cost of getting the information, especially once it's become digitized. And I just wondered if we've done a Section 17 review, because I'm aware that this is sort of a privatized partner now that we contract out to a private operator. So I
For
was
the
also,
scanning services.
yeah, and is that for the so is Recall still doing?
Yep.
So we've changed from Recall now.
Yep.
Okay. So what's just in terms of the cost of the fees? Like obviously we don't have that in here, but what do you know what we're looking at in terms of any increase or any reduction?
I think we're looking at the same. No increase.
And once we scanned a file, why would that not be become cheaper to access?
Because it's utilising, because we have to look at if we've got any additional files that we need to incorporate, because when a file is scanned, it's a point in time document. So then we need, over time, things get placed upon it. So you're talking about when we have digitised a property file and then that gets included?
Like originally when we first went through to this, my understanding was that we were charging a bit of a higher fee because of the time involved with digitising.
Yeah.
This is going back quite a few years.
Yeah.
And when we moved to this kind of different model. And as over time, as more and more become digitized, I just wondered what that did to the fee structure of what we need to charge. Because it's like the fees haven't reduced, but obviously the time wouldn't be as much of digitizing.
Yeah, I don't have the fee schedule in front of me, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
can't quote
I'll
what the
put it
fees are
through.
at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so we currently, we warehouse all the data on us. So is it a council warehouse
Yeah.
now?
Well, when we've digitised it, yes.
Right, so
Right.
where are the files currently held?
Iron Mountain.
Which is a private
Yep.
provider. Yeah.
Thank you.
It holds all of council's records.
Don't know if we really.
And
need
have
to
we
know that.
looked at what the cost benefit is to doing that versus us having that space?
No.
Thanks.
Okay, we can find that out, Yanni. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of your presentation, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we already ahead of time?
We
We're supposed to.
we are ahead of time. We have tried